Make sure I get that done. We're going to share screen tonight. Can you guys hear me?
I can hear you.
There we go. Good evening. Give everybody a few minutes to join in with us. I'll be able to hear you eventually. That's not the one I wanted. Aha, that's better. I see dim shapes.
Hi, Cynthia Mosley.
Yours makes, I can see you talking, but I can't hear you. Don't want them on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Unmute. Unmute.
Hi, can you hear me now?
I should be able to hear you, but I can't.
Oh.
Can you hear me though? Because that's what's important right this minute. Okay, good. That's a good thing. Hopefully we'll pick it up as we go. Let's see. It's those little things called volume control that help. Okay. Good to see everyone this evening. I apologize for last week. Oh, I got one more minute before I start my spiel. So.
Okay.
Let's see. I have no idea who this is. Whoops. I have to push record. I have to put that on my first slide every night because otherwise I forget. And then it's like a nightmare. So let me see if I remembered it. Yep, I'm in good shape there. I see Cynthia. I see LGLIS 45VL. I see Patricia Watson, sorta. And Heather Alexander. Patricia, you're like this great dark thing, light comes from behind. Like one of those classic monster movies where you can't tell what's good. There's Heather Alexander and Libra. Did I say it right? Libra Dumas?
Yes, Libra Dumas.
Dumas, okay. Give you a couple more minutes here. And eventually I'll get us on share screen and we'll start talking a little bit. Okay, I do promise not to wait and hang on every night, so that if you're on time, you'll miss the least, hopefully, and we won't go over too much too. I'm Mark Robertson. I'm professor for 605 this semester. I would like to congratulate each of you on getting this far and staying alive, because I think the 3-semester certification process is pretty much insane. But, I know you're accomplished at getting things done quickly at this point in your lives, and hopefully we'll do that this semester. The work's been good so far and very timely. Thank you. Oops, nope. Got to turn that off. There we go. Okay. So I'm going to switch back to my share screen because I have to remember what I'm talking about. I only prepared this about 3 weeks ago, and then last week I was all set, and the stomach bug attacked. So let's see if I can finish share screen. Push. of us over here. Let's see what I come up with. Yep. Okay, so I have to say push record or I won't do it. Okay, let me see. Let's make sure that we all know where we're at and what we're doing. Male 605, you've done this for 2 semesters previous, you're in your 3rd, and we're going to wrap it up this semester, right? So all certified and ready to go into the big bad world of school administration, which I did for 21 years total, 7 as assistant principal and 14 as principal in Charlotte Mecklenburg, and little stories will pop up along the way, I'm sure. But anyway, introduce myself. You guys know each other, right? I mean, you've been through this for 3 semesters. It's not fair for me to ask you to tell me about you and everybody have to listen to it. But if you think you have something fantastic to say about yourself, just send me an email and I'll read it, and maybe we'll read it aloud next week. Okay, we got to make sure everybody knows what they're doing with the Blackboard. We got the course shell, right? And the internship shell, right? So you turn in all your coursework to me, and that goes in. Oh, and by the way, if you're still looking for the Dropbox, your CAP 1, the CAP Dropboxes are on page 2 of the discussion board Dropboxes. They go all the way to the end, and they're there. Then the SciApp is in another place. The internship shell is where you work with Dr. Whitaker as needed. And understand she's already approached each of you with the office hours and how you can reach her and things like that, right? Right? Right. Okay, good. Okay. Task stream. Now you know how to do that. Everything with that has to do with Dr. Whitaker, not with me. But when I read a CAP 1, if I write you back and say, seems to meet the rubric, and you feel good about it, then all you need to do is let Ms. Dr. Whitaker know that you're moving forward with that, and she'll take care of it for you, or then she'll know that you're doing it so she can look for it. She'll also be the person who takes a look at your dispositions and your competencies and your internship hours. So she'll do everything past the point of the course. All we need to do is make sure you get everything completed for me. On that subject, what's important when? First and foremost for you is always the task stream, the evidences. If you've got to make a decision between time as to whether you're going to do discussion board tonight or you're going to write your CAP, then you write your CAP. Okay? Anybody got any questions about that? Because I'm not all that torn up about late work, because I think the work will get in. And I'm more about the product rather than the process. So, but I don't say that to say just turn it all in the last week of class either, because you put me in a terrible mood and I give you horrible grades. I have to read them all at the last second. Okay, this task stream subject, the SciApp template is in the BB internship shell. If you look on the left side of the shell, the thingamabob over here, it basically tells you how to put that together using your past work. So take a look at it and be ready to use that. Do not reinvent the wheel, because your evaluators are going to look for just to do bang, 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 bang. Okay? Dropping the course. No one ever drops 605 at the last minute. If you need to, in the course Blackboard shell, there's a place on the left about dropping the course, and that's where you find it. You do not do it with me. I appreciate it if you tell me you're dropping, but it's not my office and not my job. But that should tell you exactly where to go if you need to drop the course. Same thing for grade of incomplete. It's not like we can take an incomplete and work on it till February or March and then let you go. It's a very quick, very well-defined process if you need an incomplete at the end of the course. And it basically involves someone dying or something as terrible as that, taking up your time and you being unable to do it. But if you do need a grade of incomplete, you would have to talk to me, but then we would have to approach it through the administration. It's not something I can just agree to. Okay? And I'm a great believer in conversation and talk, especially about school administration, because I think that's where we learn the most. So interrupt, comment, ask questions, not a problem, anytime at all. Now if I can find out how to do this. So I want to start our course with the end in mind. Jim Collins, who wrote Good to Great, which is one of the great self-help management books of our time, always says start with the end in mind. And so I put my part of this course together from take a look at the big picture and work our way down to the small parts that go together. I'm going to say now that when you look at your weekly schedule, or when you look at the Zoom schedule for the weeks, frequently things aren't in the place that makes sense. I'm not going to accept total blame for that because the shelf of 605 has been stepped on so many times by so many people. It's all over the place. But generally, we'll work our way down and do it. For example, a lot of you are answering the supervision versus leadership questions this week, and it's important to know that we'll do that later in the semester. So we may be out of whack with the way the discussion boards and the Zoom sessions go. I just don't have enough time to be able to put it all back in order. But if you ever have questions, where can I find this? I will chase it down. Okay? Anyway, Good to Great is a business-based philosophy modified for nonprofit organizations. Because since we're a nonprofit organization, we have a different way of looking at the world and what we do. And I hope to emphasize Good to Great concepts throughout the semester, certainly from the beginning parts. Start with the end in mind. So what I want to do with you is for you to be self-aware of what your leadership style is. What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? Because the best predictor of future behavior is past behavior. So if you're an authoritarian, you can read all you want about relationships. You can learn to take some of that, but you're going to be an authoritarian because that's what you've done for the last 10 or 15 years. And to suddenly think that you're going to be able to operate out of a textbook with some kind of understanding or depth is just impossible. So I want you to be realistic with yourself. What do you like? How do you lead? What do you look for? And then look for the pieces and the tools that can help make you better with that. There's a real good Gallup book actually about talking about how we always stress our weaknesses when we look at plans on how to get better at stuff. And it suggests that, in fact, we ought to try to find a way to corral off our weaknesses and improve our strengths, because that's what we're most comfortable with and what we do best. Oh, sorry. Okay. Goal 2 is to expand your knowledge of leadership theory and practice. That says it all. Finally, what I was talking about, to make connections between your leadership style and how you might improve your understanding of theory and practice. And I hope that will show up as we go through the whole course. Last thing is, if you haven't already got a personal mission and vision for life, I'm not going to require you to turn it in or recite it to me by the end of the semester. But I hope that you'll be taking a look at what is your mission and vision for life, for leadership. What would it be like in school under your leadership? Some of you went into this because a great leader inspired you. Some of you went into this because a really terrible leader, sorry about that, because a really terrible leader made you ill. you had to fix it. You had to do better. Or some combination thereof. Okay. How are we going to assess it? What we look for is a qualitative assessment. Telling us. Is that me? Is that Candace?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So at the end, if you start with the end in mind, then you start with your assessment. And I'm all about qualitative assessment, frankly, telling the story behind the numbers. And I'll be looking at your SIOP 6, which is reflection, and your final reflections and your competencies to try to figure out what we did and what we did well and what we did poorly. I look for common themes. I look for statements that make sense, that tie together, and see what kind of reflective statement I can pull out of the course. Note, there will be no test scores in assessment. You'll hear me say ugly things about test scores on the semester long. Any questions? Okay. One of the things that we need to do is find the weekly schedule. Excuse me if I disappear for a minute. No. I apologize. I've lost my place. Anyway, I'm going to do it by discussion purposes. You each have a class meeting calendar. It talks about what to do each week. And I wanted to pull it up on Blackboard and show you, but I don't have it where I can do it. So, for example, each week will be a topic. And that'll be the topic for our course discussion. Then, good Lord. Here we are. Anyway, once we took, we'll have the topics for the week for my talk. Today, last week it said 8 theories of leadership and good to great. So tonight we'll cover the 8 theories of leadership and probably do good to great in the coming weeks. It also, then it'll have a section for what you need to read. That's a whole other aspect of learning. It'll feed into the discussion boards, but not necessarily into our weekly talk. And it'll finally end up with the evidence work. Also the assignments of the discussion boards. The important notes, you only need to do one of the 2 that are listed. I've had several people put in both of them. It's not necessary. I don't want to avoid that. And then finally, the final column for each week is the evidence work. And this week was to upload the task 1, which I think I've read a million of them, so should have read all of them by now. Okay? Oh, we have lots of people. Now, that should be clear as mud. Okay. No questions at this point. Can't imagine how you can have questions. Second part of our evening. I don't want that. Did all that. Okay. No. Again, this was designed in case I had to do it both. So let's talk a little bit about good to great. Get off the subject of managing Blackboard. Good to great, what it's basically about, high expectation, making things better partly because you expect them to be better. Start with the end in mind, what we just talked about. Know what your own vision is, what your mission is, what you're looking for a school to do, what you're looking for yourself to do, and then work backwards from there. When you're working with your new school, give explicit how-to instructions. This is the way it's done. I'll show you the way it's done. I'll show you examples of the way it's done. I will monitor everything you do. I'll tell you what's good and what's bad, but I'll make sure that you really know what's best. I'll recognize you and I'll reward you. And this guy created this system out of a business model. But as we go, you'll see the difference in what we do in education versus business. Anyway, one of Jim Collins' statements is that there's a need for greater discipline in organizations. We need more disciplined planning, people governance, and allocation of resources. 3 elements of greatness. You do better, you make an impact, and what you do lasts. Absolutely important. Now, the problem for educators is that we don't do things with money. So, and we can't throw back the ones that we didn't like. So money's not a measure of performance. There's no, you get what you get and you spend it. So how do you measure what educations do? And how do you measure whether they make it over time? Anybody got any thoughts about either of those? If I can find you. Aha. How do we measure whether we're superior or not in what we deliver? I mean, there are some schools you walk in, you're going to get 95% on grade level. And there's some schools you're going to walk into, and you're going to be very, very doing fantastic work with 60 or 70% on grade level. So how do we define what we're looking for? Anybody got any thoughts on that? I will warn you, last semester, my wife overheard one of my classes. I'm not a teacher by background, by the way. I'm a guidance counselor, as you probably can tell. But she listened to me. She said, Mark, you need to get better wait time. So I learned to get better wait time. I'm just warning you. Yes, sir. Stepping up. Who we got? Who wants to comment? How do we measure greatness in schools? Is it just test scores?
I think, I'm sorry.
Uh-huh.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I was going to say one of the ways we can measure, I guess, the greatness of a school is how they're meeting their targets, the targets that they personally set. And of course, test scores can be part of the target, but maybe climate is part of the target as well, and how the school appears to the community and how it interacts with the community.
Okay. So has your school done that?
To some degree, definitely. There's been a lot more outreach within the community. There's more that needs to be done.
I should
There's a
ask
lot.
where you're from first, by the way. What name and where you're from?
Okay, Nathaniel Bonaparte from Greenwood, South
Okay.
Carolina.
Okay. In there. Okay, I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
Oh no, I'm just saying, yeah, they've done a lot. We've done a lot to reach out to the community. Our test scores are coming up. During one of the processes, we understood that we had a deficiency in our ACT scores, and this past summer we learned that we came up in those scores. So we're making progress towards meeting our target,
Okay.
but we know where we're deficient.
Okay. Now, are you motivated by the idea of meeting targets that some guy in Columbia set for your school?
Say that again.
Are you motivated by the guy in Columbia who sets targets for your school? Is that something that fires you up?
No, I'm not fired up necessarily by that. I'm more fired up by community involvement. I just believe that the school should do something to impact the community. That
Okay.
there should be a strong tie there, and if that's happening, then the school is doing what it needs to do.
I used to float the idea that schools didn't belong to the principal or the staff, but the school belonged to the community. Because
Right.
I was going to only be there 3 to 5 years, and somehow we needed to work it so that when I was gone, whatever we did well continued.
Right.
Okay. I never got anybody to buy into it though. It was always blame the principal mostly.
You
But
gotta have somebody to blame.
yeah, for sure. Okay, how about this making progress over time? How do we do that? Let me get another volunteer or another pressed into service volunteer. Great organizations make a distinctive impact over time.
I don't know about overtime, but also another area would be stability of your staff.
Say that again?
The stability of your staff.
Okay. But tell me more.
Well, for example, if your staff is, when I say stability of your staff, I'm talking in terms of the longevity, where you have your staff members, I say, for long periods of time,
Right.
they're consistently there, versus if you have a lot of turnover at your school, those things could affect the overall growth of your school. It could be a positive versus a negative, or it could go either way, depending on.
In just a few slides from now, we're going to talk about keeping the right people on the bus.
Mhm.
So let's see what we can find out there. I'll use you as your, it's my test case. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Collins' point is that great schools assess performance relative to their mission. What have they said is their mission? If the mission is pure and simple, reading scores will go up 3 points this year, then we're fine. And it's got to be a vision shared and supported by the followers. And most importantly to him, vision has to be inspirational, because we're in a job that doesn't pay a lot, but we're in it because our heart's in it, and it has to be the basis of whatever the vision for the school is. It's not, no one's vision for a school is ever 95% on budget. It's always something being better in the lives of kids and families in the neighborhood. That vision needs to be comprehensive and needs to be detailed. You probably, I'm sure you all know by now, but there's a need for meaning in our lives, and working in schools helps provide it. It's the first thing that I noticed when I retired. Where's the meaning come from? What happened to just seeing people every day and making differences, making things that change? It's absolutely important to a school's vision that includes something in there for your meaning in life. How do we assess? Separate inputs and outputs. The leader has to be accountable for progress on outputs, even if it's not something you can measure. Say, for example, I wanted, we go back to Napoleon's idea of bringing more people in from the community or pushing them out of the community. Did I get it right? Making the community more involved in the school. How does he measure that? Is it because we had, this year we had 30 hours of companies in the building, and last year we only had 25? Maybe, but we need a better outcome to be inspirational. It's not just about counting hours. We look for quantifiable results when they're around. That's why that's why we put so much emphasis on test scores. But we gotta find out what it is that we're trying to do to track progress. Here you go. Getting the right people on and getting the right people off of the bus. A horrible issue in especially lower income education is keeping people on staff. We talked about that just a minute ago. Part of the reason we mess up, and I've done it, is because you're getting ready to start school and you don't have anybody teaching 8th grade math, and you hire a guy that you know is worthless, but you just want a body in the room. And it's a disaster all year long. Even if you fire him at Christmas, it's a disaster. So how do we make sure we're not in that position with kids? But we do need to focus on keeping the self-motivated and self-disciplined people on our staffs. We want to make them part of our process, just when he runs down the hall taking care of business. Even if you're an authoritarian, pull in some of your teachers to be authoritarian too. Speak like a leader. Study speakers. I wish I was better at it. But you're in a position where you'll need to be able to jump up in front of a crowd of people and be inspirational. Use the power of language. You have lots of examples of people you can follow in that way. Discover the power of shared interests, the power of coalitions. How do you keep people together? How do you work them together? And draw on that need to find meaning in life. One thing I always noted, no matter what happened, I met some lousy parents along the way. Some lousy parents. People had no more business having kids in the man of the moon. But I never found a parent who didn't love their child. And if you can appeal to those sorts of meanings in life when you're speaking to folks, you'll find a big difference in your attitude. Anyway, you want to keep the teachers who are self-motivated and self-disciplined. You want to make your decisions. You want to make your decisions to be around them, not around the crummy guy who hired to teach 8th grade math in the school. So, a little research report for whoever that was. I'm sorry, I didn't catch the name the first time. How do you keep people at your school? And these schools are low-income, economically challenged schools. So we're talking 2 to 6 years. We're not talking about 30 years. So don't get too excited. Feedback and development. If your school is geared with teachers to provide regular positive feedback, good development schemes, ways to help people, not set up around an evaluation schedule, but around informal feedback. You and me talking in the hall, you and me talking in the room after school, meeting with the group, doing everything like that. Teachers also stay in schools where they're recognized publicly, and when they're told they're high performing. And I'm an egalitarian. I used to hate to tell people to pick people out and hold them above the rest of the staff, but I wish I had. 'Cause I would have kept some people who didn't want to had I done that. Charlotte Mecklenburg has a teacher leader role where you can actually go in and be paid more, which is an important part, to be the overseer of a group of classes. It's a wonderful way to get people involved and get them in the school. Put people in charge of something important. The other thing that this teacher cited was that the best teachers provided her or him with access to additional resources from the classroom. If you got extra stuff, don't lay it on my 8th grade pitiful math teacher. Give it to the guy down the hall who's teaching 8th grade algebra, who's doing a super job with his room. This is the important part about greatness. As soon as you think you're great, you're starting the process of becoming bad. No matter how much you achieve, you'll only be good relative to what you become. And if you stop searching for great, then you stop. Greatness is never an endpoint. It's trying to do better all the time. As soon as you say, I'm great, you started your slide to mediocrity. No matter what you did last year, you can do better this year. That's one of the neat things about education. The years are actually separate, and you can hold them apart, and you can look at, I did this better than I did then, and da-da-da-da. Wonderful thing to it. Okay. Collins has levels of leadership. Level 1. And these are difficult. These aren't shows up for work every day or most days. Level 1, leader makes productive contributions through skills, talents, knowledge, and good work habits. He's there. He's doing a good job. He's doing what he was asked to do. But he's not level 2 yet, where you're actually looking at achieving some group objectives and working effectively with others. Or level 3, where the leader's starting to organize people and resources in efficient pursuit of predetermined objectives. And he certainly hadn't hit level 4 or 5. Ooh, I misspelled a word right in the middle of my thing. Anyway, level 4, bring that commitment in, giving that compelling vision, getting people to do better and better. Then level 5 is just keep going, even though you're not standing out in front and making it go anymore. It's a strange combination of humility and professional will that makes it work. Very, very, very few people get this far. When you read Effective Schools research, you'll see most of the folks in effective schools are real effective at a school for a year or two, and then they get a pay increase and a better job. And the next guy can't keep it up because it's that continuous level of success that's so hard to achieve. Okay. Any questions about anything that I've said about Jim Collins? Goodness to great.
I do have a question.
Yes, sir.
Level 5. I think it says there a paradoxical combination of humility and professional will. Can you tell me why there's a paradoxical relationship there?
Well,
how is that a paradox?
Because you're driven to be great. And the paradox is that, most people who are leaders of that type are your Theodore Roosevelt, your John Kennedy, you're bigger than the world, but this is humility where you've you've created a world where your staff is ongoing and that much better all the time. That's the paradox. Is that we think of great leaders as the great man or the great woman, but typically in history we think of them as the great man. Okay?
Gotcha.
Okay. Any other questions tonight? So if I had to ask real quickly, what's the most important thing to know about Blackboard this semester? What do you think is most important to know about Blackboard as you go into the final semester? Personally, I'll give you the answer to this one. I would say the knowledge that you have the internship shell to work with Dr. Whitaker as well as me with your coursework and learning. Okay? Next question for you. Where do you fit on your weekly schedule?
It's on the side menu, isn't it?
Yes, sir. It's up at the top. Well, actually, it's a whole separate menu. And what did I say about that one? Anything in particular? It will vary, and we will change it as the time goes by. Okay? Real important part is the evidence work at the end, because you're supposed to do the CAP test 1, 2, 3, 4 by September 18th. Oh, sorry. Final evidence isn't until September 25th. That's still plenty close. So hopefully everybody's got your writing shoes on. Okay. I will meet each week, Tuesday, 6 o'clock. I'll have some kind of presentation. I'll gradually get better at working with tasks, I promise you, or in a Zoom. In the meantime, I want to make sure that you have my email address. If you need my text or phone number, if you text me, make sure you put your name on it so that I answer it, because if it's just a nameless text, I won't know who you are when you ask, and I'll tend to wait for the end. Okay?
For clarity,
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
as it pertains to the weekly assignment, okay, for example, like task 2 is due by the end of the week. Is that for the review or for the final?
That's for the review.
Okay.
That's your peer review.
Okay, so it's due by the end of the week, so it can be peer reviewed.
Should be peer reviewed by the end of the week, or you should have done a peer review by the end of the week. There's only one loading Dropbox for CAP 1, and the final box needs to eventually have your CAP 1 and a peer review that you've done. Okay?
Okay, and do we have to still do the link where we peer review with your teams, or we just submitting the written peer review?
Submit the written peer review.
Okay, okay.
That'll be more than sufficient. Okay?
Okay. Perfect.
Any other questions? With that, then I'll see you next Tuesday night about 6 o'clock, and I'll come on and go with you with that. Okay?
Okay, sounds great. All right.
All right. Have a good evening.
You too. Have a good week. Hope everybody enjoyed Labor Day. You don't have another break for a while now.
Oh, great. Okay.
Yeah, I can figure out how to get this.